It is still now 7 p.m.
Okay,
Monday, the 25th day of January, 2021. And this is a regularly scheduled workshop meeting. First order of business is roll call. Mrs. Green,
Here.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Present.
Mr. Manley,
Here.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Here.
and Mr. Piacquadio.
here,
Everybody rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
pledge allegiance
to the flag
to the
flag
flag
of the
United
United
States
States of America,
America.
to the republic for which it
To
to the
stands,
republic for which it
nation,
stands,
under God,
one
One
nation,
nation,
under God,
liberty and justice
indivisible,
for all.
with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Okay. Mr. Supervisor, any changes to the agenda?
Yes, under item 15, D, E, and F will be coming off.
Okay, very good. Any other changes?
I have none.
I have none.
Okay, next we go on to item 5, approval of the audit.
So I'll look for a motion to approve this audit in the amount of $2,815,057.40. Someone make that motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second your motion.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piacquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 6 for engineering department. First, item A, Roseland Sewer District Improvements, Phase 2.
Okay, and on this one, these are additions or improvements to the Roseland Hill Sewer District, to which we have a grant. But what we want to do here, the Guihauser and Etzel, in their proposal, they have a lump sum of $7,500 and then a fee of $17,550 to actually oversee the work and the improvements at that station. So it's a combination of the two figures. Someone want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piacquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item B under engineering, approval to hire principal clerk.
All right, so this one is Debbie Deegan, the principal clerk, which is a full-time position, and but she will share it between engineering and sewer and water. The hourly rate of $20.8870, which is a 35-hour work week. The fund appropriation 1440.5100, with a start date of February 1st, 2021. And everything has been done because she's been a part-timer for quite some time here. So someone want to make that motion?
So move.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piacquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 7 for the police department. Start process to hire school crossing guard.
All right, so Police Chief Campbell is suggesting that he start the process for a crossing guard, to start the hiring process, as we had a crossing guard leave. Someone want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second it.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piacquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 8 for animal control, T94 withdrawal. The first one is A for Newburgh Veterinary Hospital.
Okay, Sharon Cunningham, our Animal Control Officer, is suggesting that we pay $295.45 to Newburgh Veterinary Hospital. And that T94 account is a donation account, not taxpayer money. Someone want to make that motion?
I'll make the
make the
motion.
Councilman Lobiondo made that motion. Do I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Pierquadio.
Yes.
Next, item B is a T94 withdrawal for Flannery Animal Hospital.
All right, once again, Charlotte Cunningham, a withdrawal of $21 from the T94 donation account. So someone want to make that motion?
so move,
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Pierquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 9, to the assessor for a tax settlement. First, item A is Newburgh Mall Realty.
All right, so on this one, this is a settlement with the Newburgh Mall, and it's been in front of Catherine Bartlett, Judge at Goshen. And it seems all have agreed on this settlement, and Kathy Drobny has recommended it as well. So I don't know if we're going to discuss it further or just make a motion to approve this as presented.
I'll make a motion. I've gone through all the papers and read everything that Kathy has presented, so I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And I'll
I,
second that.
Anthony Lobiondo, I also have read through everything, and there's been numerous discussions regarding this. And I think that Ms. Drobny's counsel on this matter is appropriate, and I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Pierquadio.
Yes.
Next on item number 9, we go to item B for Roaston CCI.
Okay, so on this one, this is the Roaston Power Plant. And again, it's another a settlement. And the school has been involved, the Marlboro School District, on this one also. And I am myself in favor of this settlement. And if we all are, or most are, we should make a motion to approve the settlement as presented.
I'll make the motion. I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Green,
yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Pierquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 10 for Code Compliance Department, approval to purchase copier.
All right, so here, this is a large copier for large prints, and the current one we had will not work with Windows 10 anymore. The software isn't capable. So we got one on state bid here. So let me read the motion. Looking for a motion to purchase a Toshiba HP Design Jet T2600 DR for code compliance. It's on state bid for $10,336.63. And that includes a 5-year warranty or care package with next day service and support. And that is from his code compliance account 3620.5200. Someone want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second your motion.
Councilman Ruggiero, did you make that motion, sir?
Yes, I did, sir.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Pierquadio.
Yes.
Next, we go on to item 11 for the Zoning Board of Appeals, Monarch Woods.
Okay. I don't think it's so much zoning board of appeals, but just zoning, Joe, I think. But, okay, so Monarch Woods is a senior complex that's being proposed on the corner of Monarch and Route 52. There's been an informational meeting, which was pretty well presented. A lot of the board members had gone to it to see what the neighbors felt. With that, I'm going to read this motion. So I think we're all on board with this one too, but this is a motion to authorize myself, the supervisor, to forward a letter to the planning board advising that the planning board may proceed with the review of Monarch Woods project under the gross density provisions of section 185.48 of the zoning code, applicable when multifamily senior dwelling units are proposed to comprise a housing project in the B district. So that'll be the motion, but let me just add this. The board will not authorize the planning board to modify the provisions of the zoning code relative to density until the planning board, as lead agency, has conducted the coordinated environmental review for the project. So someone want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second it.
Paul seconded, okay.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes,
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiando,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio.
Yes. So at this point, what I'm going to do is recuse myself from the rest of the meeting. I'm going to ask Deputy Supervisor Scott Manley to run the meeting from this point to the end. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we go on to item 12 for the Justice Court, removal of obsolete equipment.
Okay, I got a letter from Judge Clarino, and basically they have in storage a long list of obsolete equipment. And I just need a motion that we put this into surplus as presented. It's a pretty long list here.
Yes, I'll make the motion.
and I'll second that motion. I also did check it, went through a lot of that equipment. It is definitely surplus. And some of it's from the late 80s.
Very obsolete.
Okay, any further discussion? Mrs. Green,
yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes,
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiando,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio is absent. Next, we go on to item 13 on buildings and grounds, approval to hire full-time custodian.
Okay, I get a letter here from Charlene Black from Personnel requesting the hiring of Gilbert Piaquadio Jr. as a full-time custodian. Interviews were done and he was the best, the one with the experience. I get a motion to hire him.
I will make the motion.
and I'll second your motion.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
yes,
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiando,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio is absent. Next, we go on to item 14 for the Recreation Department. Item A, approval to select vendor for 2021 Chadwick Lake Grounds Maintenance.
Hey, I get a letter from Jim Pursuti, Parks Commissioner, in regards to Chadwick Lake Grounds Maintenance. We did three-year bids, and for 2021, the low bid is Lynn Warren Landscaping. So we're looking for a motion to go ahead and have Lynn take care of that this year.
so move.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes,
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiando,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio is absent. Now we go on to item 14B for the Recreation Department. Approval to solicit bids for Community Day fireworks display.
Let's hope we can do them this year. Anyways, Jim Pursuti, Commissioner, is looking to go ahead and solicit bids, sealed bids for the 2021 Community Day fireworks. And I just need a motion to go ahead and start that.
so
I'll
move.
make that motion.
Then I'll second your motion.
Councilor Lobiando, did you make that motion, sir?
I did, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
yes,
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiando,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio is absent. Next, we go on to item 15 for Water and Sewer Department. Item A, approval to award bid for 2021 alum sludge removal and disposal.
Okay, I got a letter from Jeff Guido, Water and Sewer Department Manager, requesting we go with H.I. Stone and Son based on bids for alum sludge removal and disposal. from the water treatment plant. So I'm looking for a motion to go ahead and go with H.I. Stone and Son.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes,
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes,
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio is absent. Now we go on to item 15B, approval to award bid for 2021 water chemicals for water filtration plant.
Okay, I got a letter here from Jeff Guido, Water Department Supervisor, and Department Manager. Also on December 30th, sealed bids were open for water treatment chemicals. And I got a whole list of 13 items. So I'm looking for a motion to accept all these bids as presented.
so move.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
yes,
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes,
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio is absent. Then we have item 15C, agreement to lend equipment to New Windsor.
Okay, this is just a letter we want to authorize to go ahead for the town supervisor to sign. Basically, it's an intermunicipal loan of equipment or valve exercise and turning equipment with an operator to allow New Windsor to use it for their water requirements with mutually agreed upon dates and times. I'm just looking for a motion to go ahead and have this signed.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second your motion.
Any discussion? Mrs. Green,
Yes,
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes,
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
yes,
and Mr. Piaquadio is absent. Last, we have adjournment.
Looking for a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn at 7:16 PM. Mrs. Green,
yes.
Mr. Ruggiero,
Yes.
Mr. Manley,
Yes.
Mr. Lobiondo,
Yes.
and Mr. Piaquadio is absent. Meeting adjourned.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good
Good evening.